Project Workbench.
So you've got the podcast locked down, success. YouTube series locked down, success. What's next?
What's next? I would love employees, and I'll tell you why. They provide a very important function of doing stuff that you don't want to do or don't have time to do. So I would love to be able to have employees who can help generate content and then do additional types of similar material. Giving me the ability to expand would be the next one. So like doing another podcast with someone else. I was thinking about doing a podcast with Denon, who does the Fascinating Fights with me, to talk about things that aren't competition but are still pop culture or scientifically based, like what's a better time-traveling device, the TARDIS or the DeLorean?
Well, obviously the TARDIS. I don't see why that's an argument.
Well, that's ridiculous because the DeLorean's a DeLorean. But but you can have offshoots of similar things, have a brand of like pop culture, interesting. Like I'm trying to generate a brand. Each show has its own entity and its own brand. I hate using that word, but it's the word we use now.
Very Hollywoody.
It is, but it has its own identity. Let's say its own identity and its own set of rules, and to be able to expand upon that in similar genres but without repeating the previous. That's the formula for success that Hollywood has taken.
Sure.
And I would like to be able to emulate, have the time, people, and resources to emulate something like that.
Like if you go to Wondercon, which is a convention, a pop culture convention, like everything for sale in the dealer room is pop culture branded tchotchkes. Like it's all nonsense.
It's all tchotchkes.
But it's like a supernatural jewelry box. And I mean the show supernatural. I don't mean like it has power. And they sell them all day long. It's just someone goes out to Michael's and buys the little wooden box, gets their copy of Teen Beat out, and then shellacks on a picture of what's his name?
Sam and Dean Winchester.
That's them.
Not that I watched the show.
And then they sell for $30. So there seems to be a predilection, a draw, a compulsion to consume pop culture based stuff, often in lieu of it being a quality product. It's fascinating. So yeah. I think if you're generating a quality product that is based on pop culture stuff, and the great thing about it is it's highly adaptable, right? Like whatever is good and new this week, you can have an episode on or whatever. So I think it sounds fantastic, man.
Well, thank you. Well, and it's kind of similar to what you do. And I think actually, the more high quality that the item is, I think the more people like it. The more it replicates what their favorite thing is, people want it. So similar to how you were talking about the pistol, Dre, I forget his name.
Dr. Dre?
No, Dricard. No.
Deckard's
blaster. So you wanted Deckard's blaster. You didn't want a blaster that was similar to Deckard's. You wanted Deckard's blaster. When you have it, that's different. That's why lightsabers, authentic lightsabers, are so popular, because people don't want the cheap one with like the telescoping. Yeah, they don't want that. They want the real thing. But it's why you have the cool R2 unit. You do it on a different level and you create it. But everyone who goes to these things has a desire to be a part of the thing in which they love so much, and that is their way to connect to it. And I think that it's great. I mean, it's the kid in all of us. It actually really bothers me about comic book conventions that it's been so overrun by people who aren't really a part of the comic book culture, who either A, just like movies, or B, just want to point and laugh at people. And it takes away from the element of everyone getting together and being able to just do what they want to do without fear of social repercussions for really liking Doctor Who so much that you dress like him and you have a TARDIS. I think that should be a safe haven, and to me, especially at San Diego Comic-Con, is not a safe haven anymore.
Interesting. I've never encountered sort of the animosity that you're describing. I'm sure it's there. It's interesting because there's a couple panels I'm involved with an author named Travis Langley. Does some great books.
Wanted him for Fascinating Fights. He's interested.
I texted him just today. I told him you say hi. But an interesting topic that we talk about in these panels is how much geek nerd culture has changed and evolved, and it has really switched from that thing where I think we both had the experience. Well, I know we have, where you're at the comic book shop with your loser friends talking about superheroes because you're not cool enough to go to the cool kid parties. You don't get the invite. And what's interesting, I tell this story every time, the tide has turned, and now I'm not cool enough to get invited to the D&D game that all my actor voiceover friends are holding. Like what happened? Why is there this fundamental shift from it used to be this cool thing that everyone liked and they were all cool, and now it's like this thing where everyone wants to participate in it, but in different ways. Like, it's not just like, hey, that thing's cool, let's talk about it. Now it's, hey, I'm gonna come to your event and make fun of you. Or I'm gonna come to your event and pick up on girls, because that could happen. You could meet a girl at Comic-Con. I love you, baby. But it's weird how much has changed. So it sounds like you've seen that change occurring also. Your thoughts?
Well, it's very, I mean, this is a very basic human need for power structure. So what you have is, you not to be too intellectual about it, but what you have is...
Yeah, I don't like that. I definitely don't like that.
What you have is, what was people, you know, originally it was D&D, stuff that society didn't want. We discarded it. The people who liked it and fed on it were outcasts, right? Well, things were added to that made it more mainstream, like television, films, but the quality of television and films became so much better that then it, instead of being this hidden away secret, now it's mainstream. Now people love fantasy movies. Now people love sci-fi movies. So now everyone's involved with it. So instead of it being this nerdy outcasty thing, now it's a mainstream popular thing. So the whole nerd popular dynamic flipped on its head. So now the people who are really nerdy, unless you're super nerdy like Peter Jackson and are making the movies, you're too nerdy because you're still not cool by the sense of cool, right? Because they still don't fit into the cool model, but they should be because they like the stuff that's cool. But the people who are cool, and there are naturally cool people, I believe, like Fonzie or you.
Oh, Fonzie.
Fonzie, yeah, like that was like his whole shtick. I know it's a 60-year-old reference, but the whole point of him was that like he's just cool. There's no definition for it. And I think there are people who do that, who are like that. But since they've taken over what was once nerdy, now it's popular, but it's too popular for the nerds. And like that really bothers me because it's their thing. It's like been stolen from them. It's like thievery.